This is Japan, a country that pledged after World War II to renounce war and severely limit its military capabilities. But in December 2022, they announced something that caught the entire world off guard: a $320 billion defense program. China called it dangerous. America quietly nodded in approval. And suddenly, the nation that had constitutionally restricted itself from possessing offensive military capabilities became one of the most talked about naval powers in the Pacific. So, what changed? In today's video, we're going to look at how Japan went from a devastated navy in 1945 to a maritime force that now rivals major powers, what pushed them to abandon 75 years of pacifist policy, and why their next move could reshape everything in the Asia-Pacific region. When World War II ended in 1945, Japan's Imperial Navy was gone, not just defeated, but completely destroyed. The battleship Yamato, the largest ever built at 70,000 tons with 18-inch guns, had been sunk in a desperate suicide mission near Okinawa. By 1920, Japan had the third largest navy in the world. 25 years later, it no longer existed. The Allied forces didn't take chances. They wrote Japan a new constitution in 1947, and Article 9 of that constitution did something no other nation had done. It stated that Japan would forever renounce war and would never maintain forces with war potential. The message was clear: Japan's military days were over. And just like Japan rebuilt from nothing into a global power, this channel is building something too. Hit that subscribe button now, because what comes next in this story is going to blow your mind. But here's where it gets interesting. By 1954, with the Korean War creating instability right next door, Japan quietly re-established the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. Notice the name, not a navy, a self-defense force. Every ship, every weapon system, every strategy was built around one idea: defend the homeland, nothing more. For decades, this worked. Japan poured money into its economy while America handled regional security. And if you're wondering how a country goes from that level of restriction to a $320 billion military program, stick around because this transformation didn't happen overnight. The cracks started showing in the 1990s. North Korea began testing missiles that flew directly over Japanese territory. Then came China. Through the 2000s, Chinese naval expansion exploded at a pace not seen since World War II. New destroyers, submarines, and aircraft carriers started rolling out of Chinese shipyards year after year. Chinese vessels began regularly entering waters near Senkaku Islands, which Japan controls but China claims. These weren't just passing ships. They were deliberate incursions, testing boundaries, making statements. By 2015, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force was ranked by a 2015 Credit Suisse study among the world's most capable navies. But it still couldn't do one critical thing: strike back. Japanese public opinion started shifting. Surveys showed that a large majority of Japanese citizens viewed China as a threat. The same people who supported pacifism for decades were now asking a different question: what happens when defense isn't enough? Then came 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine, and the message to every nation became brutally clear: your security is your responsibility. That December, Japan's government made the announcement: a 10-year, $320 billion defense program. The numbers tell the story. Japan's defense budget would grow by over 7% annually and would double to 2% of GDP by 2027. This isn't just about spending money. Japan is fundamentally changing what its military can do. For the first time since 1945, Japan announced that it would acquire counter-strike capabilities. That means, if attacked, Japan could target enemy bases after an attack to prevent follow-on strikes. This isn't theoretical anymore, it's policy. The focus is heavily on the Navy and missile systems. Japan is developing advanced destroyers equipped with Aegis missile defense systems. They are building highly advanced submarines with sophisticated technology. They're investing in cyber warfare units and space-based defense systems. Next-generation fighter jets are in development with partnerships spanning multiple countries. What makes this different from the old Imperial Navy is the approach. Japan isn't trying to build the biggest fleet. They're building the smartest one. Every system is designed to work seamlessly with American forces while also being capable of independent action. The technology going into these ships would have seemed like science fiction just 20 years ago. China's reaction was immediate and loud. They called it a return to militarism and warned it would destabilize the region. Their state media ran stories comparing Japan's move to its imperial past. But here's what China didn't mention: their own navy has reportedly grown to over 340 ships, making it the largest in the world by hull count. Their defense spending has increased every single year for 3 decades. The United States took a different stance. They pledged enhanced military cooperation and welcomed Japan's decision to take on more responsibility for regional security. The US had been pushing for this shift for years. With threats in Europe, the Middle East, and the Pacific, America needed allies who could carry more of the load. South Korea found itself in an awkward position. Historical tensions with Japan run deep, but both countries face the same threats from North Korea and China. Despite decades of difficult relations, they're slowly building security ties. North Korea responds the way North Korea always does, by escalating missile tests and calling the move a provocation. Here's the problem nobody talks about. Japan has a massive public debt, over 250% of GDP. They have an aging population that's shrinking every year. The working age population is declining, which means fewer people to support defense industries and serve in the military. So how does Japan plan to fund a military expansion that would challenge most countries? The answer is complicated. Japan is betting that regional instability costs more than military preparedness. They're also counting on defense technology, creating economic opportunities. Japanese companies are developing systems that can be exported to allied nations, and they're restructuring their entire defense industrial base to be more efficient. But the tension is real. Money spent on destroyers isn't spent on healthcare or pensions. In a country where nearly 30% of the population is over 65, those trade-offs matter. The government is walking a tightrope between national security and economic sustainability. Japan isn't doing this alone. They've been systematically building a network of security partnerships across the region. The alliance with the United States remains the foundation. American bases in Japan, particularly Okinawa, are critical to both countries' strategies. Joint military exercises happen regularly, and intelligence sharing has never been tighter. But Japan is expanding beyond the US relationship. They developed closer ties with Australia, signing agreements that allow their forces to operate together more easily. Defense cooperation with India has grown significantly, with both countries concerned about Chinese expansion. Even the relationship with South Korea, despite historical baggage, is improving on security matters. What Japan is building is a coalition, not a formal alliance like NATO, but a network of countries with shared interests in keeping sea lanes open and preventing any single power from dominating the region. The strategy is clear. Make aggression too costly and too complicated to be worth the risk. The transformation isn't finished. Japan's defense buildup is scheduled to run through 2027, but the implications will last far longer. The question isn't whether Japan will have a modern, capable navy. That's already happening. The question is what they will do with it. Article 9 of the Constitution still exists, but its interpretation keeps evolving. The government argues that everything they're building is defensive, but counter-strike capabilities blur that line. If Japan can hit enemy bases, is that defense or offense? The answer depends on who's asking. The bigger picture is about power in the Pacific. For decades, American naval dominance kept the region relatively stable. That era is ending. China's rise, North Korea's unpredictability, and Russia's aggression in Ukraine have all contributed to a new reality. Japan is adapting to a world where old promises about pacifism don't match current threats. This is the story of how a navy that wasn't supposed to exist became one that can't be ignored. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force started as a coastal patrol operation. Today, it operates advanced destroyers, sophisticated submarines, and is planning capabilities that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. The transformation isn't just about ships and missiles, it's about a nation redefining its role in a region that's become more dangerous every year. Japan broke its promise and changed the game. Don't miss out on the next chapter of this story. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay ahead of the biggest shifts happening in global power right now.